Two police officers yanked her arms behind her back as the hotel manager smirked, whispering, "Get her out of here." Cameras flashed, people gasped, but Vanessa didn't fight back. Because in a few minutes, every single person in that room would realize the truth. She owned this hotel. Her pulse pounded as the cold metal cuffs bit into her wrists. The officers barked orders, their voices loud enough to drown the murmurs around them. "You're under arrest for trespassing, ma'am. Step outside." "Trespassing?" she echoed, disbelief cracking her calm composure. "I work here," the taller officer sneered. "Yeah? Doing what? Cleaning tables?" A few guests chuckled. One woman raised her phone, recording every second of the humiliation. The hotel lobby, a place Vanessa had once envisioned as a sanctuary of elegance and equality, now echoed with laughter that dripped of prejudice and ignorance. Behind her, the manager, Ethan Blake, stood proudly, arms folded over his expensive suit. "Officers, this woman refused to leave the property. She's been wandering around like she owns the place." His grin widened. "And I don't tolerate trespassers pretending to be guests." Vanessa's jaw tightened. She could have ended this in one sentence, one simple phone call. But she didn't. She wanted to see just how deep their arrogance ran. She had walked into the Crystal Bay Hotel quietly that morning, wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and a baseball cap, testing the culture of her staff after anonymous complaints of discrimination. What she found now was confirmation. "I said move," one officer barked, shoving her forward. Her bag slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor. The crowd parted, watching her like she was some kind of criminal exhibit. From somewhere behind, a voice whispered, "Isn't that Vanessa Cole, the philanthropist?" "Can't be," another muttered. "The owner's never been seen here." Vanessa kept her head high. She didn't need to yell. Not yet. The truth had power, and when it came, it would silence the room. Ethan Blake followed close behind, his voice low and venomous. "You people think you can walk in anywhere and cause trouble. Not in my hotel." "Your hotel?" Vanessa turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. "Are you sure about that?" He smirked, missing the warning in her tone. "Absolutely." The officers pushed open the glass doors, the bright sunlight spilling in as they marched her toward the front steps. Photographers outside snapped pictures, shouting questions. The scene looked chaotic, like a scandal unfolding live. Vanessa paused at the top of the marble stairs, the cuffs glinting against her skin. She took a slow breath. Then, calmly, she spoke. "Before you drag me any further, you might want to call your general manager." One of the officers frowned. "Why?" "Because you're about to make the biggest mistake of your careers." The smirk on Ethan's face faltered for the first time. "Enough with the act, lady. I've already called security. You're banned for life." Vanessa's gaze didn't waver. "That's funny. I thought owners couldn't be banned from their own property." The officer holding her arm blinked. "What did you just say?" A hush fell over the crowd. The manager's jaw dropped slightly, but he quickly recovered with forced laughter. "Nice try. You, the owner? That's rich." Vanessa tilted her chin. "Check the property deed. Or better yet, call your board of directors. Tell them Vanessa Cole is being arrested in her own lobby." The younger officer hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Sir, maybe we should—" "Don't listen to her," Ethan barked. "She's lying, she's—" Just then, a black luxury sedan screeched to a stop in front of the hotel. The driver rushed out, followed by a middle-aged man in a tailored suit, Mr. Langford, the chief financial officer of Crystal Bay Holdings. His face turned pale when he saw the scene. "What on earth is going on here?" he demanded. Ethan started, his confidence unraveling. "Sir, this woman was—" "That woman," Langford interrupted sharply, "is Vanessa Cole, the majority shareholder and owner of this entire establishment." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The officers immediately stepped back, their expressions collapsing into horror. One fumbled with the handcuffs, hastily unlocking them. The cold metal dropped to the marble floor with a loud clink. Vanessa rubbed her wrists, her eyes fixed on Ethan, whose face had turned the color of ash. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the chandelier above. "Next time," she said softly, "try treating your guests and your staff with respect, because I will personally make sure you never manage another property again." Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Around them, hotel guests lowered their phones, suddenly ashamed. Vanessa turned to the officers. "You were just doing your job," she said evenly. "But maybe next time, make sure you know who you're arresting." As she walked back into the lobby, shoulders straight, the staff parted like a wave before her. The same marble floors that had echoed with ridicule moments ago now reflected awe. Justice hadn't been served by shouting or violence, just truth, dignity, and power. And as Vanessa reached the reception desk, she looked over her shoulder and whispered, "Now, let's talk about how you treat people in my hotel." The next morning, sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows of the top-floor conference room. The same building where Vanessa Cole had been handcuffed less than 24 hours earlier now stood as a symbol of silent guilt. The mood inside was tense. Managers whispered in corners, employees avoided eye contact, and in the center of it all sat Vanessa, poised, calm, her confidence returned like steel sharpened by fire. Ethan Blake sat across the table, visibly sweating beneath his crisp suit. His jaw tightened every time Vanessa's gaze met his. Around the table were the members of the hotel's executive board, faces pale with embarrassment. Every one of them had seen the viral video. Vanessa's arrest broadcast on social media under the caption, "Black Woman Arrested at Her Own Hotel." It had already amassed over 6 million views. Vanessa folded her hands on the table. "I appreciate everyone showing up early," she began. Her tone was firm but steady. "What happened yesterday wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a revelation. A reflection of a culture we've allowed to grow inside these walls." Mr. Langford cleared his throat nervously. "Ms. Cole, the officers have issued a public apology, and Ethan here will have his turn to speak," Vanessa interrupted. "But not before I'm done." The silence that followed was thick. Even the ticking wall clock seemed to hesitate. She turned toward the large screen at the end of the room. "Play it." The projector lit up, displaying the security footage from the lobby. The entire arrest played in crisp, painful detail, the mockery, the laughter, Ethan's smug grin. Gasps echoed around the table. Some managers shifted uncomfortably, others looked down. When the video ended, Vanessa leaned back slightly. "This is not just about one man's prejudice, it's about a system of entitlement. For months I've received anonymous complaints, guests of color being denied upgrades, staff being spoken to like servants. Yesterday I decided to see it for myself." Her words sliced through the room like quiet thunder. Ethan tried to regain his footing. "With all due respect, Ms. Cole, I didn't know who you were. You came in dressed like someone who didn't belong here. I was just enforcing policy." Vanessa's eyes hardened. "Policy doesn't require humiliation, Mr. Blake. It requires judgment, and you showed none." He swallowed hard. "Look, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll issue a public apology." "No," she said flatly. "You'll resign." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan's face went red. "Resign? For doing my job?" "Your job," Vanessa said, her voice calm but cutting, "is to uphold the values of this brand. You didn't just fail, you exposed us. Do you have any idea how many guests are cancelling reservations because of this?" Langford nodded gravely. "We lost 3 major event bookings overnight." Ethan slammed his palm on the table. "So that's it? One mistake and I'm ruined?" Vanessa stood, walking slowly around the table. "One mistake doesn't ruin a man, Mr. Blake, but arrogance does. You humiliated a woman in front of strangers, confident that she was powerless. Tell me, how many others did you treat that way when no one was watching?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The truth was written across his silence. Vanessa stopped behind his chair. "When I built this company, I wanted more than luxury rooms and 5-star reviews. I wanted respect to be our foundation. Yesterday, that foundation cracked, and you, Mr. Blake, took the hammer to it yourself." A board member spoke softly. "Ms. Cole, what do you propose?" Vanessa turned to face the room. "Effective immediately, Ethan Blake is suspended pending termination review. All managers and security staff will undergo sensitivity and ethics retraining. I'll be personally overseeing new anti-discrimination protocols. And before the day ends, we'll release a statement, not to save our reputation, but to admit our failure and promise change." The room was still. Then, one by one, heads began to nod. Ethan's chair scraped the floor as he stood. "You can't just—" Vanessa cut him off gently. "Ethan, yesterday you said something to me. You said, 'Not in my hotel.'" She paused, letting the words hang. "You were right about one thing. It's not yours, and it never will be." He stared at her, fury and disbelief fighting in his eyes. Finally, he snatched his folder from the table and stormed toward the door. The slam echoed like a final sentence. Vanessa exhaled slowly. The battle was far from over, but the tone had been set. As the meeting adjourned, Langford approached her quietly. "You handled that beautifully, Vanessa, but are you sure you're ready for the backlash? The press is asking for interviews. Some investors are nervous." She gave a faint smile. "Let them be. Sometimes you have to burn away the rot before the roots can grow strong again." Outside the boardroom, staff members stood silently in the corridor. Some had tears in their eyes. Others simply nodded, grateful that someone had finally stood up for what was right. Vanessa walked past them, her heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. For the first time in months, she felt something powerful, peace mixed with purpose. But as she approached her office, her assistant rushed toward her, panic in her eyes. "Miss Cole, you need to see this." Vanessa frowned. "What is it?" The assistant handed her a tablet. On the screen was a headline flashing across major news outlets. "Former hotel manager claims racial bias in firing. Says he was set up." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. The war wasn't over. Ethan Blake was not going quietly. The storm broke faster than Vanessa anticipated. By noon, every major news outlet was running the same story. Ex-hotel manager claims racial discrimination after firing. The twist of irony almost made her laugh. Almost. But the damage was already being done. Social media split like wildfire. Hashtags trended on both sides. Hashtag Justice for Ethan versus hashtag Stand with Vanessa. By evening, reporters swarmed the Crystal Bay Hotel's entrance, shoving microphones toward guests and staff. Camera crews camped outside, hoping to catch Vanessa's reaction. It was chaos. Exactly what Ethan Blake wanted. Inside her office on the 32nd floor, Vanessa stood by the window overlooking the city skyline. Her assistant, Rachel, placed a folder on the desk. "He's been on 3 morning shows already. Claims you targeted him for being too strict with guests." Vanessa didn't turn around. "Did he mention handcuffing his boss in front of 100 people?" Rachel shook her head. "He's calling it a misunderstanding. Says you were looking for a reason to fire him." Vanessa sighed, rubbing her temples. The world always seemed to bend sympathy toward the wrong people. Ethan had been humiliated, yes, but by his own arrogance. Now he was flipping the narrative, painting himself as the victim of corporate injustice. The office door opened, and Langford entered with a grim look. "It's getting ugly, Vanessa. Investors are nervous. The board wants to know your plan before this becomes a legal circus." "I'll handle it," she replied firmly. Langford frowned. "How?" "He's got lawyers, journalists, even a PR consultant pushing this story. They're framing it like you fired him to make an example." Vanessa turned from the window, her eyes cold but steady. "Then I'll give them the real example." Later that evening, Vanessa sat in a sleek black studio chair under bright lights. She had agreed to one interview, one opportunity to speak directly to the public. No spin, no script, just truth. The host, a seasoned journalist named Elaine Torres, leaned forward. "Miss Cole, you've stayed silent since the incident. Why now?" "Because I've watched lies travel faster than truth," Vanessa said calmly, "and I think people deserve to know what really happened." Elaine nodded. "Mr. Blake claims he didn't know you were the owner, that he was just enforcing hotel policy. What's your response?" Vanessa folded her hands. "That part is true, he didn't know. But the issue isn't that he made a mistake. It's how he treated a human being before knowing who she was." Elaine paused. "You're saying it was racial profiling?" "I'm saying it was racial arrogance," Vanessa replied. "The assumption that a black woman couldn't possibly belong in a place like that. He saw me as a trespasser, not a potential guest, or even an equal. And if that can happen to the owner, imagine what happens to people with no power to fight back." The studio fell quiet. Cameras zoomed in on Vanessa's composed face, her words hitting like truth forged in fire. Elaine leaned closer. "Do you regret how you handled it?" Vanessa shook her head. "No, because silence would have meant acceptance. I didn't build this company to mirror the same prejudice I faced climbing the ladder. I built it to challenge it." When the interview aired, the effect was immediate. The clip spread across platforms, cutting through the noise of Ethan's lies. Viewers called her Grace under fire. Her calm conviction made the difference between rumor and revelation. But Ethan wasn't done. The next morning, a leaked email surfaced, one allegedly from Vanessa's account, suggesting she'd planned Ethan's removal months before the incident. Headlines screamed, "Leaked emails expose hotel owner's bias." Vanessa's phone buzzed non-stop. Langford rushed into her office again, face pale. "We're in trouble. The media's treating this like proof." "Let me see it," Vanessa said, scanning the email. Her expression didn't change, but her mind raced. The writing style wasn't hers, punctuation wrong, date formatting off. "This is fake," she said flatly, "and I think I know who's behind it." Rachel looked shocked. "You think Ethan forged it?" Vanessa nodded slowly. "Or someone helping him?" She stood, grabbing her phone. "Rachel, get IT to trace that email. I want to know which server it came from and who sent it. And call our legal team. Tell them to prepare for a defamation suit." Langford hesitated. "Are you sure this is the right move? If we go after him legally, it becomes public record." "Good," Vanessa replied. "Let the truth become public record too." By nightfall, their digital forensics team returned with results. The email hadn't come from Vanessa's domain. It originated from an outside IP, registered to a freelance PR agency recently hired by Ethan Blake. Vanessa stared at the report, jaw tightening. "So he's manufacturing evidence now." Rachel's voice trembled. "Should we go to the police?" Vanessa's expression hardened. "Not yet. I want to catch him red-handed." She turned to the window once more, the city lights glowing below. Somewhere out there, Ethan was watching his false story rise like a wave. But what he didn't realize was that Vanessa was the tide, steady, patient, and unstoppable. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You wanted a war, Ethan. You just got one." 3 days later, the Crystal Bay Hotel shimmered under the flash of cameras once again. But this time, Vanessa Cole was ready. The press conference had been called by her own PR team. Every major outlet filled the grand ballroom, reporters whispering as they adjusted their microphones. Rumors had been swirling, some calling her a tyrant, others a hero. But today, Vanessa would end the noise once and for all. She stood behind the podium, dressed in an elegant navy suit, her posture straight and calm. Behind her was a massive screen showing the hotel's golden logo. Beside her stood her attorney and the head of cybersecurity. When the lights dimmed, Vanessa stepped forward. "Thank you all for coming." 3 days ago, a false narrative began spreading. A narrative designed to discredit me, my company, and the principles this hotel stands for. Today, I'm here to correct it with facts. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Vanessa tapped her tablet, and the big screen came to life. "This," she said, pointing to an enlarged image of the forged email, "was circulated online claiming I conspired to fire my former manager, Ethan Blake, based on race. What you're looking at is fake." The cybersecurity head stepped forward. "We trace the digital signature of this message. The metadata reveals it was composed from a server belonging to Titan PR Agency, an agency recently contracted by Mr. Ethan Blake. The timestamps and routing path confirm his direct involvement." A ripple of shock spread through the room. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling notes furiously. Vanessa continued, her voice calm but firm. "I didn't want this to turn into a spectacle, but when a lie becomes a weapon, silence becomes surrender. Ethan Blake didn't just forge an email, he tried to destroy the truth, and by extension every staff member who stands for integrity in this building." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But I will not be intimidated by deceit." From the back of the room, a voice shouted, "Is Mr. Blake here to respond?" A commotion stirred near the doors. Reporters turned as Ethan Blake himself walked in, flanked by 2 lawyers and looking smug as if he'd come to reclaim his lost ground. "Oh, I'm here," he said, stepping forward with forced confidence. "And I'd love to respond." Vanessa didn't move. "You're welcome to speak, but choose your words wisely. Everything here is being recorded." Ethan smirked. "You can try to paint me as a villain, Vanessa, but everyone knows how this game works. You're rich, powerful, and when someone calls you out, you crush them. This," he gestured to the crowd, "is what power does to people like me." Vanessa looked at him steadily. "People like you? People who work hard, who don't have everything handed to them?" A low gasp echoed through the room. Vanessa slowly walked around the podium, eyes locked on him. "You think I had everything handed to me? Let me tell you something, Mr. Blake. When I started, I was cleaning rooms in a motel smaller than this lobby. I saved every dollar to buy my first property. I faced racism, rejection, and silence. So don't you dare pretend to be the victim when all you ever did was abuse authority." The audience fell completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Vanessa turned toward the screen again. "Ladies and gentlemen, Before this press conference began, my legal team submitted evidence to the authorities. What Mr. Blake did, fabricating digital evidence and distributing defamatory claims, is a crime. Ethan's face drained of color. One of the lawyers beside him whispered something urgent, but it was too late. Two uniformed officers entered from the side doors, walking straight toward him. "Mr. Ethan Blake," one said, "you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and defamation." Reporters surged forward as Ethan was handcuffed, the same sound that had once echoed around Vanessa's wrists. Only this time the humiliation wasn't hers. As he was led away, Ethan's voice cracked. "You'll regret this." Vanessa didn't flinch. "No, Mr. Blake," she said quietly. "You already do." The crowd erupted in questions, but Vanessa simply stepped back to the microphone. "This hotel will continue to stand, not for perfection but for progress. We will rebuild trust, retrain every employee, and ensure that no one, regardless of their race or status, ever feels unwelcome within these walls again." The room filled with applause, genuine, thunderous applause. When the conference ended, Vanessa walked toward the lobby. It looked different now, brighter, freer. Employees stood straighter, smiles more genuine. The same marble floors that once reflected her humiliation now mirrored her triumph. Rachel approached quietly, eyes glistening. "It's over," she whispered. Vanessa smiled faintly. "No, Rachel, it's just the beginning." She looked up at the massive gold sign, Crystal Bay Hotel, and felt the weight of justice settle softly in her chest. Not vengeance, not revenge, just truth, finally standing on its own. As she stepped outside into the sunlight, cameras flashed again, but this time the world wasn't seeing a suspect. They were seeing a survivor, a leader. Vanessa Cole didn't just own a hotel anymore, she owned her